Well, welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, May 16th show. I am committed to providing you the knowledge needed to be successful in every area regarding your finances. Knowledge is power, and that's why I'm here and what you'll receive for listening to my show. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, you can call into the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com to discuss anything you heard in studio or anything that you would like to hear on my show. In studio right now, Anton Cauthorn with Rehberg Law Group. Choosing the proper beneficiary designation for your retirement account is pretty important. And Anton, thank you so much for coming back in studio.
Yeah, Tina, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here again.
And a little background about Anton. Anton has been practicing in the area of estate planning and tax for 4 years and holds a doctorate degree with the University of San Diego School and Law, where he graduated with honors and was a lead articles editor for the San Diego Law Review. In addition, Anton has a Master's of Law degree in the area of tax law with a focus on estate planning and small business planning. Anton is a member of the Washington State Bar Estate and Gift Tax Committee and Q Law. Anton practices and focuses on estate planning, estate tax planning, small business planning, works with couples in non-traditional relationships and special needs planning. So Anton, I'm excited about this topic here today, and I'd like to just go ahead and start out with what qualified retirement accounts.
So Tina, qualified retirement accounts are a special type of savings tool that people use to save for their retirement. And the big issue today is many times people don't have pensions anymore. What they're doing is they're saving on their own in 401ks, IRAs. And these are called qualified retirement accounts because they have special qualifications under the tax code that allows you to defer taxes over a long period of years rather than paying the taxes up front. So really what you're doing is you're taking pre-tax dollars and you're putting them into a retirement account, investing that money for a long time. And then when you pull the money out, you pay the taxes. So really what you're getting to do with a qualified retirement account is defer the taxes that you're paying and grow your money tax-free. This can be a pretty huge benefit. If you really look at this, say you have $10,000 that you want to invest with pre-tax money. Well, if you're in a 25% income bracket, you're going to take 25% off the top and you can only invest $7,500 for, say, 20 years. You're going to end up with a much smaller amount if you invest that $7,500 for 20 years every single year as you would if you invested the $10,000 beforehand before the taxes. What these qualified retirement accounts allow you to do is they can now take that $10,000, don't take the taxes out, put it into an account and keep growing that account every single year after year after year without having to worry about those taxes until you take it out. This can be a pretty huge benefit and can increase your investment power by hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the time and the amount of money that you've invested.
Compound interest, isn't that what they call it?
Exactly.
So Anton, what should people know when choosing a beneficiary designation on their retirement accounts?
Well, when people are choosing a beneficiary designation for these accounts, there's a few things they should realize. And the first is that these are really estate planning tools. It can seem so simple to go out and just change your beneficiary designation. Most of us, when we set up our accounts, we put a beneficiary designation and we maybe didn't think about it. We just put down a name of our spouse, didn't put anybody else on there. Well, the problem is this can actually end up conflicting with your estate planning as you go down the road if you do something else and you have other goals. One common goal people have, they want to plan for their kids, but their kids maybe are minors, they're irresponsible. So rather than giving their kids an outright inheritance, they want their kids to have assets in trust. They want to put restrictions. They want to have somebody else manage the money. If you put a beneficiary designation on your account that gives your children outright access to those funds, now suddenly they're getting one asset from your retirement accounts outright, but everything else under your estate plan is going into a trust for your child's benefit. In this sense, your beneficiary designations can really conflict with your estate plan. So that's one of the things you need to know. You need to, when you're designating a beneficiary, is it going to work with your estate plan? Have you talked to your estate planning attorney to make sure those two things are in harmony? But at the same time, there can be a little bit of a dilemma for somebody who wants to name a trust as the beneficiary of an estate plan. So if you want to protect that estate plan in a trust or the beneficiary designation, so your retirement goes into a trust, it has restrictions, say your child who has drug and alcohol problems doesn't get the money outright, you want a trust to hold that retirement account. The problem is if you take that money and you put into a trust, you can end up with problems where they have to pay the taxes immediately when they get that money. So it can end up being a pretty big issue. So one thing people want to do is they want their kids to have their name, the kid's name on the account. What that allows the child to do is they can defer the taxes just like you did over their lifetime. So it allows the children to keep on growing that money for a long period of time. Whereas when you name that trust, they force them to pay the taxes over 5 years and there's a smaller pool of money that they can grow. So it's a pretty big tax benefit if you actually name your child as a beneficiary. But then you have the dilemma. You've named your child as a beneficiary, but they get an outright inheritance. Whereas maybe you wanted to restrict it because they were a minor, they have these drug and alcohol problems, or for some other reason you wanted to protect them. Maybe they're going through bankruptcy. Maybe you're worried about a divorce. So you get the dilemma. Do you put your retirement account into a trust when you pass away, or do you give it outright to your children?
So there's really a lot of things when it comes to planning for anything, and estate planning is no exception. And really, you can make some pretty traumatic, devastating mistakes if you don't get the information and understand what's important to you and what you want to happen after you leave. So what should someone do if they want to create an IRA trust, Anton?
Well, an IRA trust is a special type of tool, and what it allows you to do is kind of get the best of both worlds. Before I was telling you that, if you designate your child as the beneficiary, they get the inheritance outright. But if you designate the trust, they get this loss of the benefit. You have to pay the taxes immediately. An IRA trust allows you to get both the benefits. So if someone wants to create an IRA trust for the protection, what they can do is they create a trust that has very special terms. And the terms of this trust allows it to be something called a look-through trust, where you look at the beneficiary on the inside as being the named beneficiary on the account. By doing that, they can defer the taxes over the beneficiary's lifetime as opposed to having to pay the taxes right away.
Okay.
So if someone wants to create a trust like that, they should really talk to their estate planning attorney. These are very, very complicated trusts, and you want to make sure you have an attorney who's familiar with IRA trust and an attorney who's familiar with tax law, because there's a lot of tax law that goes into designating these. A small mistake can mean the taxes have to be paid immediately instead of deferring the taxes on that retirement account.
Small mistake, which ends up being a huge mistake.
Yeah, it can end up being huge amounts of money lost because of a small little mistake. And it's very frustrating for the beneficiaries once you've passed away because they can't do anything to change it. If you didn't set up properly while you're alive, everything can go completely wrong once you're gone.
Wow. So what about for my married listeners? Is it a good idea to name your spouse beneficiary for your retirement account?
Yeah, for people who are married, one of the most common planning tools with the retirement account, and what most people do when they set up their retirement accounts, is to name their spouse. When a spouse is named as the beneficiary of a retirement account, they actually have a special tool they can use where they can convert that retirement account into their own account if you pass away first. It's a pretty big benefit, so they just turn it into their own retirement account. They can use it however they want. In some circumstances, this can cause problems. If someone has an estate that's a taxable estate for estate taxes, that's an estate above $2 million as a couple, what you can end up having is if your spouse gets the whole retirement account outright because you named him or her as the beneficiary, now they're going to have a larger estate. So say together you had a $3 million estate. If you took one half of your estate and put it into a special type of trust, you can protect your half of the estate from being included in theirs for estate valuation purposes.
Okay.
If you give everything outright to your surviving spouse, they now have $3 million, which is $1 million above the Washington estate tax limit. And they pay taxes. One of the big mistakes we see is people put this called trust split into their estate plan. They forget about their retirement accounts and leave their retirement account entirely to their spouse. And it breaks the estate plan because now the spouse has more than $2 million when they pass away again. So this is another big issue. You want to make sure you plan your estate, again, with the beneficiary designations, even with that spouse, because there can be these issues.
And what about a second marriage and when they have children? What type of advice would you have for that situation?
Yeah, so in second marriages, this can be even more important. Again, most often people name their spouse as the primary beneficiary on their retirement account. But then what happens is you pass away, and like I said before, they can roll over that retirement account into their own account. So now they decide, okay, who's going to get this account after me? They name new beneficiaries, typically not your children. So in cases where you have blended families, we very often see if someone names their spouse as the beneficiary, that spouse then changes the beneficiary designation to their children, and your children get left out in the cold. It's something people don't want to see. And this is another great place to use IRA trusts. So you can put your account, rather than to the spouse, into a trust that can benefit your spouse for their lifetime, but then guarantee that when your spouse passes away, that retirement account will then go down to your children afterwards.
Yeah. And, just a call to action to anyone that's listening to the show today that, any change that you make in your financial situation or your life situation, marriage, new kids, new money coming in, you always need to get back in contact with your estate planner, your CPA, and just make sure you're getting everything lined up and making those changes, because you don't want to have a devastating financial situation, especially after your death. Anton, how can people check what their current beneficiary designations say?
You can check what your current beneficiary designations say just by talking to the institution that holds your account. You may be able to check online. I know Boeing employs one great example. You can look online, check and change your beneficiary designations. If you don't have that option, give a call to the person who's holding your account or send them a letter or an email.
Okay.
That's the best way to do that.
Okay. Now, we talked about life changes. Other than that, if there's no life changes, how often should people be checking and updating their beneficiary designations?
People should be checking these fairly frequently. We've seen problems in the past where something changes at the institution. Maybe they got a new database that they're using, and somehow they lost your beneficiary designations. Or maybe if you just transferred to a new company, they can get changed. So I say every few years, just take a look, make sure it still reflects your values, what you want to have happen when you pass away, and also that it hasn't been changed or lost over time.
Okay, what about any cautions?
Yeah, there's some things some people should look out for when doing beneficiary designations. The big one is make sure you've done them and make sure you've named the right person. And the biggest caution is talk to your estate planning attorney, because people always forget that a retirement account can be your biggest account, maybe for some people be the largest asset that they have.
Yes.
And if you name the wrong person as the beneficiary, it can completely go wrong. Biggest mistake I see, people forget to take their ex-spouse off the retirement accounts. Really big with 401ks, suddenly the retirement account is going to someone you really don't want it to go to.
Yeah, not so bad for that ex-spouse, but yes, not a good thing.
Yeah.
April, I love you, but I would not want my husband's retirement fund going to you. So let's go ahead and wrap up my time here with you, and any special concerns to people that already have IRA trusts, Anton.
If you have an IRA trust in place, you just want to review it. One big thing we want to make sure is that they should be an irrevocable trust. In the past, a lot of people drafted revocable IRA trust. There's been some changes in the laws and changes on how creditors can reach trust. And what we found is that you want to make sure it really is irrevocable. You can't change it in order to make sure creditors can't come in and get those assets when you pass away. And really, if you don't do this, you may lose a portion of your IRA to creditors, whereas if you make it irrevocable, you can avoid having those creditors come after your IRA once you're gone.
Yeah, you don't want to lose it to your ex-spouse, creditors, or the government. So if you have any questions, that's really what the show is all about. That's why it's called the Money Hour. It's related to anything that regards your money, your finances, which has everything to do with your life and your family. 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Anton, thank you again so much for coming into studio. I love hearing about the estate planning arena.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tina.
And this is your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, signing off for the day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for being here. I will be here same time, same place next weekend, right here at 1150 a.m. KKNW. Have a great weekend.